Hi, Harry. Once again, we're trying it on a different platform. Welcome to the Wheel Talk Live podcast, mate. It's been an absolute madden trying to get you on over the last 20 minutes, sorting out the technological issues. But we're finally on a different platform on StreamYard. If anyone can see that really random, annoying duck in the top corner, hopefully you don't have any problems with that, because this is the realities of recording virtually. Nice one once again for joining me, mate. How are you?
Yeah, good, mate. How are you? Thanks for having me on.
All good. We've said this about 3 or 4 times, haven't we? But it all adds to fun, mate. Yeah, take the wheel and tell the audience who you are, mate, because it's all about you this episode and hearing the great work that you're up to, mate.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah, my name's Charlesworth. I was a DJ based in Manchester and producer. And obviously, we were talking a little bit about the backstory, weren't we, of where sort of our music started from, really. So do you want me to just get into that and start from?
Of course, mate. Take the wheel and fire away.
Perfect. So, as we were saying before, originally started sort of love for music in primary school. There was a brass band at my school that I was always really intrigued by them. I enjoyed sort of the music that they played and sort of the reactions that they got from the crowd in school. So I started playing a brass instrument, a baritone. It's like a mixture between like a tuba, like a small tuba, and a bit bigger than a tenor horn. So I started one of them nerdy band kids at school. And yeah, I loved it. It was great. I did it for 2 or 3 years. And then when I got to secondary school, I just stopped. It was a bit different in my secondary school. It wasn't sort of, they did have a brass band and stuff, but it wasn't kind of the same. And I sort of just fell out of love with it a little bit. But then from there, I listened to a lot of like heavy metal music when I was in school. I was a bit of a skater kid. And then sort of got into indie music after that. But sort of electronic music started when I was about 15, 16. I got into dubstep and drum and bass, that sort of music. I remember I had a friend at the time called Dom Utley, who's doing really well now, actually. He's touring the world, playing all over. And he always used to say to me, if you want any decent dubstep tunes, go to Charlesworth, because he's always got the best ones. And he tried getting me into Fruity Loops and obviously making my own music, but I never downloaded it. I did try, but I just had some issues downloading it, and a thing popped up saying you might get a virus from this. So I just never ended up doing it, which I regret, to be fair, because obviously if I would have done that from an even earlier age, I'd have a lot more experience under my belt in producing, which is a bit of a shame, really. But obviously we move on, and I think everything happens at the right time in your life. And I think when I was younger, I was a little bit immature as well, and it probably felt at the right time for when I did start producing, and kind of got my head screwed on a little bit more with things, and was able to put my like passion into it and spend more time on it, and kind of get to where it is today, really. After college, obviously listening to dubstep a lot, I got into like sort of tech house music. I went to a lot of events in Manchester, Sankeys basement, obviously one of the main ones that I used to go to, Gorilla a lot as well. And then other smaller events, Joshua Brooks. And then bits like going to like warehouse projects as well. I do prefer the smaller events, but yeah, I used to go to quite a few events at warehouse projects as well. Just loved, obviously, the atmosphere there, the people there, just sort of connecting with people, as I've heard you mention before on the podcast with Gabe as well. It's kind of all about building connections with people and like-minded individuals. And then went to university in Leeds, where I picked up my first set of DJ decks. They were a pair of Hercules, they were called. And I don't know if you've ever seen a pair of these, but I'm not kidding. They're about this big, smaller than like a computer keyboard. They're really, really like set of 70, 80 quid decks. And I first got them out at a bit of a weird story, actually. So, I don't really let things like this bother me now, but I picked them up, and my housemates at the time, when I lived in student halls, they were into that sort of music, and these decks they were so small, and I brought them out for pre-drinks once, and like everyone was like laughing like while I was playing them, but I thought they were laughing at me because I wasn't good at DJing or whatever. But actually it wasn't that, because I found out later on, they just said, oh, it's just because the decks were just so small and your hands are like quite big. We just thought, do you know what I mean? They just thought it just looked a bit weird. So I think I let that sort of not get to me as such, but I sort of it set me back a little bit, and I kind of thought what people thought it was like, just maybe I just not meant for this sort of career or whatever. And it probably took me another couple of years to sort of get the confidence back again, to sort of build it up and sort of start getting good at DJing, really. And then I ended up investing in like a decent controller that plugged into my laptop, which was a a DD-J SB2 Pioneer, and obviously these were a lot bigger. My hands didn't look too big on these ones, so that's when I sort of started picking it up and playing regularly, like myself, probably every couple of nights at my house, and picking up that. Just like developed a massive love for it. Obviously, I'd always been into music, but never sort of been able to sort of put my own creative spin on it.
Yeah.
And then used to always go to a lot of parties in Hyde Park and Headingley in Leeds, and that's when I really started jumping on, like, people that have proper decks, and that's when I jump on properly at some of these parties, and that's where I developed a really big love for it. Just sort of the reactions I was getting when I was playing there, and then that's when I knew it was something that I really wanted to do. Not full time as such, I still wanted to be like a professional businessman, like Lord Sugar at that time, so studying business at uni. And then I got my first house after university, and I'd like to publicly apologise to the neighbour I live next door to there, because I need to go and drop her some flowers off. She never once made a noise complaint, but her daughter and her just used to ignore us. She hated us, and I kind of didn't realise how sound worked then. But I used to sort of back up. It was an end terrace house, and I used to have this massive subwoofer. I used to always put it next to the chimney, and obviously her bedroom was above that chimney. And we used to have parties till 7, 8 a.m. in the morning every weekend. And yeah, thinking back to it now, we probably weren't the nicest to her, but yeah. And then we used to have an ironing board. We get the decks out on there, so I'll send you a picture of it later. But every time we came around, you used to get the ironing board out, put the decks on it, get the speakers out, and I used to probably have, at one point, I think I had about 80, 90 people in my house, and just used to DJ to all them, and that's when I really developed a passion for it. Just because kind of that person that you feel like when you're up there, and you sort of just making people dance is just such a great thing, I think. And
absolutely,
yeah, it was great. And then after that, obviously, you got to a lot. Well, I missed out a bit there with the parties in Leeds, Mint Warehouse, Mint Club. We used to be out like pretty much every night in those sort of events, or Canal Mills. It was just great. I love that sort of environment. And then after then, I obviously used to go to Ibiza quite a lot, of quite a few of my friends, and that was when it really took off. And I remember going to a few clubs in there. Pacha mainly. I saw Solomun play there on the Friday. I went with my old boss from work as my leaving do. It was one of the best things I've ever seen. And like, I remember coming back on the Saturday morning. He was playing back to back with Dixon Friday night at Transmoderna, and I didn't really know much about Solomun then. But when I heard him, I was just like, I couldn't stop playing his music for like 2 or 3 days. And it's quite different to the music I like. It's not really like tech house; it's more like kind of melodic style. But it was just the stuff he was mixing in with it, with the acapellas and old school sort of heavy techno from back in the day. It just really resonated with me. It was great. Anyway, after being there, obviously my boss was a little bit older than me. He's in his 40s. So by the Sunday night, he just wouldn't wake up. He passed out.
He was gone.
He's a Blackburn lad, actually. He could not get him out of bed. He was just fast asleep. I tipped his single bed over. He was still fast asleep on the floor. So in the end, I gave up. I can't miss Solomun on the Sunday for his own residency. So I went out on my own. Met this couple from Essex. It's one of the best nights of my life, and like from then on, I was just sort of sold on the idea that I wanted to be a DJ really and producer. Come back after that holiday. No, sorry, it was the holiday in the summer that we went on, which was with all our friends. And there was an event at Jackson's Pit in Oldham. Don't know if you've heard of it, Jackson's Pit. It's like
mate.
Like an old underground pub, a bit of a dingy place. And this lad called Eno used to run it. And I used to go to all the events, but this one, none of my friends would go. So I just went on my own, and I stood there all night from 9 o'clock when it opened till 4 when it finished it. And he came up to me at the end of the night and he said, look, he said, I see you here all the time. And he said, I get people on constantly doing sets. They don't bring any of their friends. And then as soon as they finish playing, they just leave. Whereas you're here from start to finish every night. He's like, why don't you do a set? And as soon as he said that, I was kind of a bit sort of like, I don't know if I can do this. And I think maybe the thoughts of the old Hercules little tiny controller came back, and people maybe laughing at me while I was doing it, just thinking, I can't do this. So I recruited two of my best mates, James and Nephi, and we created a group called APC, it was called, which stood for Alien Poetry Collective. So I'm not too proud of that one. But yeah, it went really well. We brought about 40 of our mates down, and we was the opening set of the night as well. So we kind of shut it down, really. It was great. And obviously that, again, it sort of took off even further from there. And I really then knew that was exactly what I wanted to do. But I took a bit of a step back really after that, because I thought I can play all these events, and I noticed people that play a lot of big events, but they haven't really got that sound behind them of like the stuff that they're producing. And I feel like you can't really get as far as you want to go if you've not got that sound. If someone sees you DJ at an event and they go, "Oh, he was great," then you go on the SoundCloud or the Spotify afterwards and you're trying to find them and they've got nothing on there. I mean, you're not going to get as much a following, if you know what I mean. Like all big DJs have got their own sound and you know exactly what their music's going to sound like or what sort of stuff they produce from the sets, really. So that's when I got into producing, and that was about 5 years ago. So from then I've done a lot of producing. I wasn't the best at the start, I will totally admit, and nobody is the best, obviously, when they first start at anything. So it was a big learning curve for myself, as I know it is for other people as well. But what helped me massively was I paid for a couple of mentors. So Rob Pack, Pack the DJ. I did like 30 hours with him, and shout out to Rob because his lessons are probably some of the best I've ever had, and that just took my production level to like totally different levels. Really, it was mental how much better I got just from lessons with him. Because first lesson I had with him, I showed him a track that I'd made, and he said, "Oh, that's really good." He's like, "How have you made it?" And I just made it all off the basic stock Ableton plugins. Like I'd not used any sample packs. And he said to me, he's like, "There's no way you've made that with sample packs." And I was like, "Yeah, it's no sample packs at all. It's just all the basic plugins." And he's like, "Honestly, I don't know how you've managed to make it sound like that from that." And it took me probably about 6 months to make this one track, just because I was using all the basic Ableton stuff and trying to make it sound the way I wanted. Rather than using like a bass synthesizer, I was using something called Operator in Ableton, just making my bass lines from that, which is so much harder than using a synth or a synth plugin. And then from there I got lessons off Luke Welsh, who's part of Libero, and he sort of helped me develop that sort of like percussive style sound, which was nice. And then I've also done one lesson with James Poole as well. They're both really good teachers. So that's sort of where that I've got into the position I am really with producing, and how I'm just joint studio days with people as well. So working on music at the moment with Kev Christopher, some stuff with Pook as well, Tommy Tailforth. We're having a joint studio day in a few weeks' time.
Good lad is Tommy.
Yeah, he's a really good lad. And then I'm also trying to get a day booked in with Basso as well, a guy from Liverpool. He's a nice guy as well, so you need to get something booked in with him. But I just think, just sort of networking with people, using mentors, that's the advice I'd give to anybody that wants to get started out, because you can sit in front of a laptop for weeks on end, but at the end of the day, if you can take some knowledge from somebody else that's already done it before you, then you're going to accelerate yourself miles faster. Obviously, you need that basic knowledge to start off with, but then once you've got that, then I think it's just, it makes you go a lot further in production.
I like you, mate. You've just talked for 12 minutes there. I've basically had to do nothing there, mate. You're selling your own show here. This is what it's about, man. There's loads to unpick. I'm trying to remember it all because my brain's ADHD to the max, mate.
So is mine. I just talk and talk and talk, and I just like that. Just go on tangent.
You do right, mate, and that's what's evident coming through listening to you. I think, obviously, I'm not putting words in your mouth. I think, obviously, all DJs have an ear for a tune, but you tend to have like a deep insight into sound and the processes behind it, etc. Would you say that your musical background before you even knew what DJing was about has probably helped you sort of develop and grow into something as organic as what you are now?
Yeah, I think massively. Yeah, I think I've always just had I've always been really into it, and I just I like to know the fundamentals of everything and how things work. It's kind of like when teachers at school would say to me like, "You need to do this," like say for like a maths equation, and I just go, "But why am I doing that? I don't understand. Like, I need to know why is this being done, and what are the actual reasoning for it behind it." And it's the same with music. I love to just get to like the bottom of everything. Like, why does this sound like this, and why do you want it to sound like this, or how have they created this? And it just, I think dead deeply on about a lot of things, really. So I think it fits really well into music, and that's what makes me happy about it the most.
Just picking this back up there, mate, we had some technological issues on my end once again. Absolutely excellent insights so far, buddy. And I just wanted to know, as a performer, do you sort of gain a better sort of intimacy in terms of that connection with the crowd in smaller venues or larger venues? Because I know you played a lot over your time as a performer? What do you prefer?
I think I definitely prefer the smaller, intimate venues. I think it just depends. It's like whatever you can get that kind of crowd reaction from, and I think sometimes these bigger venues, the sound systems just aren't quite as good as the smaller ones.
Yeah,
Like I know at Disorder that we played for Extra Tracks last
yeah,
weekend.
so that.
It was really small, tight, intimate venue, and because the best thing about that venue, in my opinion, was the fact that all the tables were so far away from like where the bar was and where the decks were at the front. You couldn't, if you sat at the tables, you was totally away from you. You couldn't really sort of hear the music as well. So it forced everyone to stand at the front, and because the way all the poles were in the middle, that the structural supports of the building, you couldn't sort of stand behind them because you couldn't see the decks and the booths. So you had to stand right in the mixer, and it just meant that obviously there was a lot of people there anyway, so it filled it out anyway. But it was just great because just the whole night the dance floor was just full and it was just popping and everybody was just dancing. It was great. But one of the best events I've been to that I played at, to be fair.
How important is that connectivity as a performer with your audience?
Yeah, I think that's probably number one, to be fair. That's sort of the main reason that I wanted to get into it in the first place. I'll tell you a story. Actually, I've missed this bit out of the history of myself. So when obviously one time in Ibiza, I met a guy called Aaron there, and we were talking in Ushuaia watching Fisher for about 2-3 hours. Not even when we listened to the music, we'd be like, "Oh, it was great!" That and we just carry on talking. And we was talking a lot about books because I'm heavy into my reading and like self-help motivation kind of books.
You do, right?
And he told me to read a book called Mastery, and you should read it as well because it's a really, really good book. And it's basically about that every single person in life has a calling, a specific calling, and it's not like when you're born, you already have like this intention in your life that you need to fulfill before. And it talks about like different people talks about like the masters, like you've got like scientists in there, you've got psychologists in there, but you've also got performing arts people, actors, that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And it just really resonated with me because it says in one of the first chapters when I got back home from Ibiza, I read it. And it states like that when you were a kid, you did something that your parents like they couldn't understand. They didn't know why you did it. It was just like really weird. And it sort of so with Einstein, for example, he had a compass that his dad gave to him, and he thought that if that can move and he can't see what forces are controlling that, then what other forces are out there in the universe, and that's what caused him to be like a physicist and E equals MC squared and all the rest of it. So I got off like after I finished the chapter, I rang my grandma and I rang my mum because they were the two people I spent most of my childhood with.
Yeah.
And it was a bit sad at first because my grandma said, "I can't remember you really doing anything like that." And then I thought, "Oh, great!" So I rang my mum secondly, and she said you used to like hoovering. So I was just like, "What?" I was like, "Well, I'm not going to be the next Dyson, so I don't know what this means." And I was trying to sort of figure it out, like what my path was in life and whether to go down the business route more or the music route more.
Yeah.
Anyway, 2 hours later, after I was a bit disheartened, my grandma rang me back and she said, "When you were younger, you used to go to Rochdale Town Centre when I was like 2 or 3 years old." And she said there was a brass band playing, and she said you used to get everybody up, like grab everybody's hand and everybody dance. And then when she said that, I was like, that's it. That's obviously my goal in life. It's got to be musically. It's making people dance, whether that's DJing or running an event or producing music. So that sort of then hit, and I realized that was when I need to really sort of go for it. And like you say, having people dance at an event is definitely for me the main thing, just especially because of that story, but also just the feeling that you get from it, just that you're making people happy and making people have a good night. So yeah, it's definitely.
I was just going to say, it definitely sort of, seems like your calling. Like you said, everyone has a calling in life, but it seems like music really sort of, again, correct me if I'm putting words in your mouth, music sort of like hits you and connects with you as a performer on a spiritual level. And would you say that sort of comes out in your performances when you're behind the decks? And how has your sound sort of evolved over the years, would you say?
Yeah, so I hope it comes out. I mean, I try to make it to in every set, but I think sometimes you can get a little bit nervous or things might not go right on the night, or you might just... I've never come away from a set, though, and thought that was terrible. Do you know what I mean? I've always thought it was at least half decent. And I think the last few sets I've done, I've had a few technical issues, just things like speakers not working. I did a radio show and the speakers didn't work at all, so I ended up just mixing in headphones and it went like we absolutely sent it. It was a bit nervous, like when we were in there, because we were like, "Oh my god, what's this going to sound like? Is it going to sound like how we want it to? Is there going to be any mixes that are a bit clashy or whatever?" But the amount of people that was texting while I was live on the show, just saying like, "Wow, this is probably one of the best sets I've heard you play," and it was kind of like, just from mixing in headphones, it was like a challenge for me, just to make sure it was extra special. But yeah, sorry, what was your question again? It was all about my.
I've forgot, to be fair, because we're both so engrossed in the this love of music.
It was about sounds.
Absolutely. Would you say your sound has evolved over the years? I'm going to say.
Yeah, massively. I think obviously, just from what I listen to, really, I think that sort of gives you the inspiration for the types of music that you want to make and things that like sort of resonate with you. So obviously, from going to Ibiza, every time I go to Ibiza, I have so much inspiration when I come back to make music, and I feel like it changes probably every time. And then I went to Some Ways Festival in Romania last year, and I think, after watching Carole like 24, we didn't last 24 hours of his set, but he played a 24-hour set near enough. And from that, I got so much inspiration from that, just some of the stuff he was doing with acapellas and the sort of like the percussions he was using. It was just, like again, that really resonated with me. And I think when I come back, I had so much more inspiration. I think obviously inspiration can die down, though. I think sometimes you can be sat in front of your computer for 6-7 hours straight making music, and you just get to a point where you think, I just need to go and do something else. And as soon as you do, like you go for a walk or you go to the gym or whatever, and then it refreshes your brain afterwards. Like sometimes I'll just jump down and do some press ups in the studio, a little bit of exercise, and then afterwards I'll sit back and I'll go, that sounds terrible what I was making then, and then I'll change it and it'll be miles better. It's just because you get sort of sapped into the same sort of processes, and it gets a bit repetitive. Do you know what I mean? After a while of the same thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just going to say that when you said about the speakers, not working and having to mix through your headphones, as a performer, what do you learn most about yourself in moments of adversity? As you know, we've had a couple of moments of adversity. Trying to sort this podcast out today. As I told you there off camera, sometimes my muscles can stiffen up, which affects my train of thought. Then you start panicking and body stiffens up, which is why I had to pause the recording and start again. But I sort of welcome moments of adversity, me personally, to see how I react. Is that something that you would say adds to your I get, not that music's a product, but you get what I mean. It seems like you welcome challenges in your life.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I'm quite like a spiritual person. I think like everything in life is like a challenge. And I think when I start thinking negatively about things, it's like I attract more negativity. So like with the radio station, I was well nervous before I went on it. And then I got there, the speakers didn't work. And I was like nothing could go more wrong. But then just by persevering with it and getting through it, it was like the feedback I got was like, oh my God, best set you've done. It was kind of like, because I'd like not been phased by the technical issues, I then got rewarded at the end of it, and everything worked out right, if you know what I mean. It's done it in the past as well, where I've been to events and like the decks haven't worked, or it's always when I'm really nervous that's when it'll happen. It's kind of maybe a coincidence, but I believe you attract, like, if you've got a negative mindset, you attract more negative things to you. If you're positive about it. If I went into there not nervous, I guarantee you everything would have gone perfect. But it's all a life lesson, I think. At the end of the day, it's like you learn from. If every day was amazing, then no day would be amazing, if you know what I mean. If you have a hard day, then sometimes that day, just getting through it, you feel so great the next day because you're like, at least it wasn't as bad as yesterday and I got through that day. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely. And I think that's a metaphor for music as well. Music definitely speaks to me. I presume it speaks to you in your own personal way for yourself as well. When you recording new sounds and songs, how do you sort of, aim for your music and your sound to speak to an audience? Is your sound sort of slow, fast, melodic, progressive?
I think it's sort of just I don't make stuff for what I think other people like. I just make things for what I like, basically, because I think if you don't enjoy the stuff that you're making, it'll never be as good as you could make it. Do you know what I mean? Like, if I think, like, say that a song's big on Beatport, number one, I'm not really about that. I prefer sort of more intricate, smaller stuff that really sort of like resonates with me, as I said before. And I think just by adding sounds together that I like, when I listen to my music, I don't necessarily think I have a sound yet. Like, I've not fully developed it, but then I'll send it through to my like closest friends that are peers that I'll send stuff through, for for feedback on certain songs, and they'll say that's definitely got like your sound with it, and I'll be like, I maybe didn't hear it myself before. I just liked it, and I sent it back to them, and then they've told me it's got that sound.
Yeah.
And mine's sort of like heavy bass lines, rolling bass lines, and then obviously just sort of the hi-hat progressions that I'm making is I'm just using a lot of like top loops to fill out the top end and stuff, just to sort of give it that sort of like raw sound. And then mainly for me is like with percussions. So I like to sort of get like bongos and like claps and stuff that will sort of, when the lyrics aren't in the track, you still think you're hearing the lyric because of the way the percussions are. That's like how I try and make all my music now. So say if a lyric said like something with 3 syllables, I try and have the perk on the same notes of those syllables. You know what I mean? But then I'll take the lyric out, and you still hear the lyric in your head, but it's not actually there. I kind of like that sort of stuff with my music, and that's what I think sort of makes it quite catchy. Yeah, which is obviously a good thing.
It's really interesting to hear this, because obviously I'm not a producer myself, and the everyday person in the club or bar or restaurant or wherever you're performing would just, hear a song and think, oh, it's a song, I can do that or whatever. But there's so many intricate processes involved to making tracks, isn't there?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's you need to persevere with it a lot, because I think for the first 2 years I didn't get anywhere with it really, and I think you sort of lose faith in yourself and think it's never going to happen, and maybe like everyone that has made a great song has just been naturally talented and they've not put the hard work in. You sort of doubt yourself a lot, which I think obviously the books that I've read have sort of made me think nobody's naturally talented. Maybe it's to a certain extent, but nobody's just lucky and gets a gift that they just. It's all about just hard work, and it's having that mindset to just persevere with it and just think eventually I will make something that's half decent. And I think that's the thing as well. It's always the time. Have you seen the meme of the diamond minder where he's knocking through and he gets that close to the diamonds and turns back, and then it's got a picture of someone below where they're just about to get to the diamonds, but they're a bit further away, but they carry through and get to him. And I think that's quite a good metaphor for life, really. And I think sometimes when you're that close to closing your laptop screen and just giving up on something, that's when, if you persevere through it, you will actually break through and create something that you really like, and other people will hopefully like as well when you release it.
I totally agree. And, like I said on other podcasts, it's great to, speak with people who are innovative and want to, go their own way and forge their own paths in life, or in whichever field they're in. And one way performers and producers are doing that these days is through producing their own music on platforms like SoundCloud, Spotify, and Beatport, rather than being assigned to a label at the start and really putting in those hard jobs. How important are platforms and streaming services for producers like yourself in sort of building that presence and crafting your work?
Yeah, I think absolutely massively major importance with the SoundCloud. I think it's sort of you're putting out like things that you want to push out, and I think there's a lot of music on SoundCloud that I've listened to that's unsigned. It's probably better than stuff that's actually on Spotify. It's just a case really of people just having that confidence to send it out to labels. And James Poole actually said to me, he said it's probably one of the best things I've heard within this industry is if you throw enough shit at the wall, something will eventually stick. And I sort of view that as like one man's trash is another man's treasure. You might think a song that you've made is not the best thing in the world, but sometimes you'll send it out and someone will love it and it'll get signed. It's just one of them things. It's everyone's just perception of it, isn't it? You might really like something and everyone else thinks it's terrible. So I think it's a great way of expressing yourself, putting things on SoundCloud. I mean, some of the old stuff on my SoundCloud, I think I've hidden it now. Do you know what I mean? But at the time, I might have really liked it. So yeah, I think it's definitely of great importance to have platforms like that for people to be able to express themselves and give their take on things. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely. And one sort of key feature that we both have in common is that we both, have done some work with Gabe from Extra Tracks and through SoundCloud. How obviously you're a resident DJ at Extra Tracks. How important is having that backing and that connectivity, and like we said, the networking with people to sort of be aligned towards a common goal and the sound, if that makes sense.
Yeah, shout out to Gabe as well. Like, he's probably one of the best people I've met in the industry. Just a dead sound. Lad. Yeah, he's a good lad, isn't he? I originally sent some music to Gabe last year. a track called Nature's Groove, which was it was totally different to anything I'd heard before when I'd made it. I think it took me on a Saturday about 8 hours to make it, and it was missing a vocal. And my mate come round for a few pre-drinks that night, and I played it. Friends called Aaron as well. Shout out to Aaron, he's a good guy as well. And he listened to it, and he said, "Oh, do you know what it's missing? It's missing kind of like." And I won't try and recreate what he did, but he just sang some random lyrics out loud, and I went, "That was amazing." I said, I put it onto. I got a little keyboard up so I could do the key for it in A minor. And then I just recorded it off my iPhone microphone. I might still have it on here somewhere. Let me find it.
Yeah, go on, have a look. This is what people want to see.
If you've heard the song, or it's out on SoundCloud on Extra Tracks anyway, it's called Nature's Groove.
Brilliant. I'll give it a listen.
Let me just see if I can find it now. I don't know if I named it.
Shout out to you, mate, for giving you the inspiration to add a vocal, man.
Oh yeah, it was great. Well, you just said it'd be missing a vocal like this, and then I ended up rewinding the vocal and playing it backwards for like the build-ups, and on the drop it's got his vocal, but that was just him off my iPhone speaker. I don't think I've still.
If you can't find it, I'll try and find a way, even though I can't edit or like that. I'll try and find a way to put it over the top of the episode.
I don't think I've got it on here at the moment because I've got this phone's just all reset itself, but. Yeah, he just he sung it into my phone. I played it over the top, and it was perfectly in key. I didn't even need to change the key of his vocal or anything. It was like, and he likes a bit of karaoke, but he's not like he's not a full-time singer or anything. It was just perfectly in key, and it just fit like amazing. That's another thing that the love of music is just like little things like that to bring it together. And every time I play that song out loud now, he loves it because he knows it's his lyric being played in the song. Really rates it. So,
how do you extract vocals to add to tracks, if that makes sense? Because obviously you won't sing over the top of your own tracks. Say, for example, if you want a vocal and you think, "Oh, that sounds cool, I'm going to add that to my track," how do you go about the process of doing that?
So there's many different ways. So you can use something called Loop Cloud, which has like vocals on there that are royalty free that people just obviously put on there, and you stick like £6 a month, and you can just drag them straight on to choose the key you want and put them over your track. But another really great thing is an app called La La Lie, and it's an AI. I think I'm saying that right. That's how I call it anyway. And it's an AI, so it splits tracks. So you can put any song in there off like a YouTube converter, and it'll extract the vocal down. The only issue is at the moment, though, I think SoundCloud's cracked down a lot because it's got like a new AI system, I believe, where if you put a song in that's already out in like, well, however, if it's a copyrighted song, it won't let you upload the track, which is a bit of an issue. I don't know if fair few producers are having issues with it at the moment, but if you put stuff in there to split the vocal out from the instrumental, but you could also as well take a synth out of the track or a bass line out of the track or the drums out of the track, split them down, and then you can just listen to them and then make your own take on it, basically, which is a really good piece of kit. So yeah, any producers out there, I'd suggest using that. It's a good tool.
Love that, mate. And this is what I like about getting DJs on. Because like I said earlier, as ticket buyers or supporters, we often just hear a track and think, "Oh, it's easy." But there's so many intricate processes involved, as I said, and also combined with the love of music and what it does for people. It's a really unifying thing, isn't it? Just to like sort of wrap up slightly, what would you say music has done for you? Do you think?
I think it's definitely changed my life because I think I was always trying to chasing this sort of like status and like monetary value of life, and I always wanted like a big house and nice cars and stuff, and I never really found any happiness with it. It's kind of like I got to each different stage in my life, like I get a house or I get a buy-to-let property, and I was like happy for like 30 seconds, but then I sort of thought, well, I just added a new thing to my to-do list, like get a bigger house or get a better car or get more money. Do you know what I mean? So I think with music, it's kind of like once you've done something, like that's there forever. I mean, I know we got your house forever or whatever, or you keep moving up, but just having that first track you got signed, or that like I've recently got got a track on the Music On fan page, which is like a big achievement for me. It's one of the biggest things forever. And when I saw the YouTube notifications on for the page when it come through, honestly, that was like one of the biggest things ever. I dropped my phone in the middle of the street. I was just in the middle of the street, like screaming. It's just great. Like you can't beat that feeling. And that feeling resonated for like a month or two after. I still felt good about it. Whereas when I was doing sort of the business money path, it was just sort of like, yeah, that's great. You could always want more money or more of this. Whereas with music, it's more like that's a proper milestone. I've actually done that. It's all my own work, and it just feels so much better and so much nicer.
Can you see yourself doing this career for a long time? And well, not career. I would say more. It's a vocation and a calling. What we spoke about, at the start, really. And can you see yourself doing this for a long time? And what are your hopes for the future? Would you say, as a bit of a sign off?
Well, I've actually got like a big sort of end goal. I mean, I don't know if we'll ever get to there. Well, I say we will. Yeah, I'll manifest it. Thanks, mate. So that's to have my own residency in Ibiza at Pacha. That's my big goal. Try and manifest that every day. So I think eventually, with a bit of luck and a bit of hard work, we might get somewhere near there. That would be great. As I said, won't be disheartened if I don't, but it'd be a nice end goal.
And the final one, have you got any advice for anyone following the dreams, mate? Because I like to speak about mental health and, motivation and mindset like yourself. I put myself in hard situations to see how I react because I feel better for doing it. Like I say, we've had a few mess-ups where, with recording and stuff, but I love challenging myself. And, because out of that, you start to figure out who you are and what you're about and what we can truly do. And there's lots of people out there that want to follow their dreams, but perhaps, a bit scared to do so through situations happening, adversity moments. Have you got any advice for anyone who might want to follow the dreams and a bit scared to do so?
Yeah, just 100%. Just biggest enemy sometimes is yourself. Like you can do like whatever you put your mind to is possible to a certain extent. And I think a lot of the time people care too much what other people think and they don't send stuff out when actually like their music or from a music perspective again could be so much better than somebody else's. So I think just don't listen to those voices in your head that say you're not good enough or it won't get signed or you can't do that, you can't achieve it. Because at the end of the day, you can do anything that you put your mind to. It's like a lot of people like can make excuses out of things and sort of say, oh, well, I can't do that because of this. But actually, if you put yourself in those situations because you've got a strong mindset and that at the end of the day, by doing that, you're only going to benefit yourself. So give it a try. You may as well because you'll only regret it at the end of the day. You regret the things that you don't do, not the things that you do. So you'll always learn from any mistakes. So
respect, man. Thank you for giving up your time today, mate. Probably enjoyed it, and I hope our paths cross at one of Gabe's events or wherever in the future. If you do get a residency at Pacha, you know where I am, man.
Yeah, mate. I'll get you a VIP ticket 100%. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it, Joe.
All right, cheers, mate. I'll end the recording and speak to you afterwards. Nice one.
Thanks, mate. Take care of yourself.
Cheers.